Have you ever wondered how to set up your finances to make sure that you can achieve financial freedom? In this video, we're going to go over the exact system that I use to get out of debt and begin building wealth. Hi, welcome back to MyFiMap, the one-stop shop for your financial independence journey. My name is Chris, and I'm here to teach you everything that you need to know about financial independence. We're in the middle of our series on the path to financial independence. Click the card to get caught up. Today we're going to be talking about setting your course. We already know where we are and where we're going, so now we need to figure out how we're going to get from here to there. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Today we're going to talk about the B word, budgets. I know budgets are awful. Maybe you've tried to get on one and found it impossibly tedious to try to keep track of everything that you're doing, and it was absolutely impossible to stay on budget. And there are so many different types of budgets. How do you know where to start? Do you try Dave Ramsey's envelope system? Or do you go with the you need a budget plan that has you living off of last month's income? Or do you do the 50-30-20 rule? Maybe you've never heard of any of those things, and now just hearing me spew out all these different things, it's got you feeling even more overwhelmed. Before we talk about how your budget should be structured, let's take some time to talk about your mentality when it comes to budgeting. How are you feeling right now knowing that we're talking about budgeting? For a lot of people, this is the part that they dread the most. Maybe you feel unduly constrained by your budget. Or maybe you hate writing out your budget because it confronts you with the fact that your paycheck every 2 weeks doesn't have enough to cover your expenses. Or maybe you like the idea of budgeting, but it also sounds like it's going to be really time-consuming and overwhelming and frankly boring. However you're feeling, know that it's okay. We all start somewhere. And as you get a better handle on your money, know that the process is going to get less overwhelming, take less time, and become easier and easier. Pretty soon, dare I say it, you might even come to like budgeting. But even if you don't, I hope that you'll stick with it long enough to get past the I hate money and I never want to think about it again phase. Okay, it's time to get into specifics. Now, obviously, I can't give you exact numbers that fit your specific situation. And even if I could, this is not financial advice. This is my opinion that's been colored by my education and experiences. But hopefully, the guidelines that I give to you will help you as you decide how you want to manage your money. You may recognize some of these questions from the last video. Today, we're going to be talking about how all of those things fit together in your financial system. At its most fundamental level, a budget is a financial plan that's based around your income and expenses. So as we begin to build your budget, let's start there. How much do you make each month? We want to include all sources of income, whether it's just your job or you've got several side hustles. As a side note, a recent release from the IRS says that the average millionaire has 7 streams of income, whereas your average low or middle class person only has 1 or 2 streams of income. This puts a lot more stress on finding and keeping a job and makes things a lot more stressful if something puts that job into jeopardy. Now let's take a look at your expenses. This is where a lot of people get derailed in their budgeting efforts because you need to find the balance between having enough detail in your budget so that it's useful and having too many details so that it's overwhelming to keep on top of. In my budgeting efforts, I found that it's most useful to have as few categories as possible and then slowly add categories as you need more detail. One of my favorite financial writers is Ramit Sethi. A lot of my own views on money have been really shaped by him. If you're unfamiliar with him, Ramit is the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which totally sounds like a scam, but is low-key the first book that I give to anyone when they say they want to learn how to manage their money. If you want a more detailed look at how to manage your money, you should definitely check out his book. Link down below. Ramit likes to call budgets a conscious spending plan because he wants you to focus on making intentional decisions with your money rather than ignoring or reacting to it. He breaks down your spending into 4 major categories: fixed costs, investments, saving, and guilt-free spending. And then he breaks down each of those as a percentage of your income. I'm going to dig into each of these categories a little bit more, and then after each section, I'm going to ask a couple of questions to help you as you're building out your budget. Fixed costs are things like your mortgage or rent, your utilities, phone bill, groceries, or loan payments. These are the staples in your life that you need to pay to make sure life goes on without interruptions. Your fixed costs should be about 50 to 60% of your income, but I know that this gets increasingly hard the lower that your income is. One of the main ways to keep your fixed costs lower is to make sure that your housing is no more than 30% of your take-home pay, ideally closer to 25%. When you have a lower income, you might need to get a little creative to make sure that your costs stay lower. This might include renting with roommates or potentially even sharing a room. While I was getting out of debt, I rented an apartment with 4 other guys and slept on the top bunk of a room that I split. Your turn. What are your fixed expenses? And what percentage of your income are your housing costs? The next category is investing for retirement. Ramit says to invest at least 10% of your take-home income. I prefer to have closer to 15%, and if you want to achieve financial independence earlier, you're going to be investing even more than that. Your initial investments should be split between your 401k and Roth IRAs. If your employer has a 401k match, make sure that you contribute enough to get that entire match. Most employers match between 1 and 6%. Investing in your 401k is nice because it's counted before taxes, which lowers your taxable income. You can contribute up to $19,500 per year. But before you go beyond your employer match, you should max out your Roth IRA first. If you're unfamiliar with Roth IRAs, they're a special account that allow you to contribute $6,000 per year, and then after you're 59 and a half, you're able to withdraw all of that money and the growth tax-free. I've actually got a video coming out next month about IRAs. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to make sure that you don't miss it. If you don't have a Roth IRA yet and you don't know where to start, I love M1 Finance. It's a newer brokerage that was built from the ground up to facilitate wealth building habits with an easy to use interface. They make it super simple to connect your bank account and set up automatic contributions. There's a link down below to a sample portfolio if you don't know where to get started. Your turn. Does your employer offer a 401k match? And are you contributing enough to get the full amount? Do you have a Roth IRA? Remember, if you're married, both you and your spouse can have your own accounts. The next category is savings, which should account for 5 to 10% of your take-home income. This covers savings for vacations, a down payment on a house, a wedding, or whatever. In general, if you're planning on spending the money in the next 1 to 3 years, just leave it in a bank account. But if the occasion is further off, consider investing in the stock market until the timing gets closer. For example, I started saving before I was even dating my now wife. Since I knew that I wanted to get married, I started putting away a little bit of money in an S&P 500 index fund, and by the time I met my wife, dated her for 5 years, and finally got married, I had managed to save up $14,000. It didn't cover the whole wedding, but it made it a lot easier to afford the wedding that we wanted. Your turn. Do you have any big expenses that you're saving for? As a bonus, if you've ever received an annual bill in the mail and cringed inside because this month's money was going to be a lot tighter because of it, try Googling an annual sinking fund. I created one 12 years ago, and it's made annual bills like car registrations a lot less stressful because of that. I'm planning on making a short video about annual sinking funds. Comment down below if you have any questions. Ramit's fourth category is guilt-free spending, which should account for the remaining 20 to 35% of your take-home income. This is where eating out, going to the movies, shopping for new clothes, and having fun experiences falls. This also covers your Netflix and Spotify and Quip and Disney Plus subscriptions, even though those might feel like they're fixed costs. People tend to move in one of two directions with their budgets. Either they leave their categories super broad and it's not a particularly helpful budget, or they get really granular and then they get overwhelmed as they're trying to keep track of absolutely everything. I found that it's easier to have broader categories and then have a few more granular categories for the things that I want to focus on. For example, my wife and I have broader categories like shopping and eating out, but we also have some narrow categories for the things we want to focus on, like buying books and going to coffee. We love our coffee. Your turn. What's the thing that you love, but feel a little guilty spending freely on? A lot of people feel like budgets are constraining, but a budget should really give you freedom to spend money freely on the things that you love. My wife is an avid reader, but sometimes she feels guilty going out and buying all these books. So we created a specific line item so that she knows exactly how much she has to spend on books, and then she can just go after it. I like to add on a fifth category, giving, which accounts for 10% or more of my take-home income. Depending on your beliefs, this could also fall under fixed costs or guilt-free spending, but I like to keep it separate. They say that money makes the world go round, and that's true to a certain extent. Ultimately, money is just a tool that allows us to do things, and that's why giving is so important. Giving allows us to come alongside other people and help to change the world around us. Giving also helps us keep things in perspective. It's so easy when we're focused on paying down debt as quickly as possible or saving up 30% of your income so that you can reach financial independence early, that we get wrapped up in our own lives and in our own stories, and we forget that there are people right next to us with their own lives, their own stories and hopes and dreams and fears. Giving forces you to take a step back and look around and realize that there's more to life than your next money milestone. If you haven't been in the habit of giving, I know that it can be hard to start. And it can be even harder when you're barely scraping by, living paycheck to paycheck. I spent over a year making $20,000 a year, living in Southern California, and there were definitely times when I didn't want to give. But I made the commitment to myself to stick to that 10%. I know that it's not easy, and you might need to cut back spending in some other areas in order to be able to afford to give anything, but it's worth it. Your turn. How much are you willing and able to give each month? It can be easier to stick to your commitment to giving if you pick out an amount and an organization ahead of time. And there you have it. By dividing your budget into fixed costs, investments, saving, guilt-free spending, and giving, you know that the essentials are covered so you can enjoy doing what really matters. If you liked what I had to say, hit the like button. If you really liked what I had to say, share the video with a friend. And don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell icon so that you can get the next video on identifying milestones for your financial independence journey. I'll see you next time.